Welcome into a Tuesday edition of Daily Faceoff Live, streaming live on the DFO YouTube. If you have inbox questions for myself, for 10-year NHL veteran Carter Hutton, or for our guest Jeff Merrick, you can drop them in the YouTube chat. The show, as always, a presentation of Bet365. Hockey fans, check out Bet365's 3-goal early payout. When your team goes up 3, you get paid. It's that simple. Download the app today. It must be 19 plus. Please play responsibly. Huts, how you doing?
Good, buddy. I like that little shout out there, giving me the gears. Not even full pension either, too. You know, I'm in the old one, and they would give you a half game credit. They used to dog the boys. I can't imagine what it was like playing before the old pension. So us poor guys, we're trying to find a way to get by. That's why we're doing yeoman's work now with you, Ty.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody sitting at their desk or sitting in their truck working today is going, damn, that sucks that Carter only got 95% of his NHL pension.
Yeah, it's hard to feel bad, but I'm not a trust fund kid. This is self-made and excited to be here. And we got lots to break down today because the NHL has just turned on its ear with everyone being fired. And we got playoff races every which way we look here in the West and the East.
Yeah, Jeff Merrick's going to join us in a little bit. We'll talk a bit about the playoff races, especially in the West today. But speaking of trust fund kids, the heir to the Boston Pizza fortune, Brad Treliving, is out as the general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs in his third year at the helm and the first year where the Leafs are in line to miss the playoffs. And listen, it's the first time since the 15-16 season that the Leafs are going to miss the playoffs. So a decade-long run of being in the postseason comes to an end, and Brad Treliving ultimately pays the price for what's a flat-out failure of a season. They gas him with a couple of weeks left in the regular season. The thinking is they want to maybe get ahead of the market a little bit here and give themselves as much time as needed to name his replacement. But Huts, when we look back on, I guess, this era of Toronto Maple Leafs hockey and the 3 years at the helm for Brad Treliving, what stands out to you?
I think the trades were killer too. I think you look at like going to Game 7 in round 2 and where they're at, and then just that lopsided loss to the Florida Panthers, and then just the wheels coming off. And again, I think when I think about Brad Treliving, I think about these trades that were made in this identity they were trying to build under Craig Berube and himself, and it just never really working out. And I look at their back end, and they just seem like they got a lot slower. And I look at how good Oliver Ekman-Larsson has been, but other than that, like, it's an aging decor. The lack of offense, and I guess maybe productivity from Morgan Riley has been killer. And then I look at this year, Anthony Stolarz, the way that he played has just been a lot killer. He had a .926 last year in 34 games. This year, he just hasn't been the same guy. And I think coming out early in the season, calling out his teammates and trying to get some motivation. And then the loss of Mitch Marner, right? Like, this is a guy that I think they thought it was going to be very easy to replace his 100 points and everything that he brings to the table, and they weren't able to this year, and it's just been an ugly situation. And you look at the Austin Matthews injury, the non-response of a team that wanted to have this grit, and it just doesn't seem to fit. The shoe doesn't fit for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
I just feel like they took their eye off the ball a little bit as an organization, right? The goal is to build a highly competitive, highly skilled team that can go on deep playoff runs. And I just felt like it was some overreactions and maybe misunderstanding even why they lost in the playoffs. Like, there was at times maybe a lack of, if you want to call it, culture and things like that. You think back to last year against the Panthers and the way they just kind of cowered on home ice in that series and eventually lost out. And then their response, and this honestly almost predates Treliving to some extent, but like the response was, well, you got to get tougher. You look at some of the names he added up front, whether it be Dakota Joshua, which would be kind of the last big trade he made or big addition that he made as Leafs GM. You go back to the first moves he made for a guy like Sam Lafferty, acquiring Joel Edmondson at the deadline, Scott Laughton, Brandon Carlo. Like, all of this was done in the name of like, all right, we need depth players who are going to play tough for us. And again, a lot of the blame does fall on the Leafs stars because it's, starting to become a bit more of a star-driven sport, I suppose. But like, I don't know, man. I just look at this and I see the names he signed. I see the names he traded for. It's just so bland. There was nothing impactful done here, I think, to properly help out those star players. I don't know. I just have such a weird feeling looking back through all these moves of like, what did he do for the last 3 years?
Yeah. And again, I think for me, it was like that copycat thought of like, hey, we're in the Atlantic. We're going to play Florida again. I think everyone predicted that. So you go get Dakota Joshua, you get Nicholas Waugh, you get these players that add a little more size, a little more grip, but then you're like slower because you lost a guy that produces all these points. And then I think the taste in everyone's mouth is you look at some of these trades, right? You look at the Scott Laughton deal, right? It's Gurbankin and a first. So you end up flipping him back. So you end up with a third, a fourth, and a sixth, and Scott Laughton's gone. right? Gerbankin's gone, who's been a fan favorite in Philly, and he doesn't produce a lot, but he is a guy willing to go out there and grind, and he's a fun interview. It's a good personality that loves. And then the Boston one's a tough one for me, right? With Carlo and a Minton in a first. And now you look at Fraser Minton, who's playing first-line center minutes right now with Pasternak. He is just slowly getting better and better and better with that opportunity. And the Bruins are a bit of an anomaly, right? You don't know what they were doing. And then the fact that how bad Brandon Carlo has been for this hockey team, it's really, really tough, I think, to swallow, probably from an outside perspective of Keith Pelly and everything and ownership that goes into the Toronto Maple Leafs, where you are in this bubble, you're expected to be good, and it feels like this core four that was supposed to save the Leafs, the core four is gone, and this team is falling apart. Matthews is hurt. Who knows if Matthews can be the same athlete after this knee injury and everything that's gone on. They are in a very, very unique situation here, and they just won last night to be a game over 500. So it's not like they're going to get a big pick that's going to save the day either, Ty.
Well, no, because that pick in all likelihood is going to have to be sacrificed to as a part of that Carlo trade, which just makes it even worse. Like, again, I'm not saying you don't need to have toughness and you don't need to add lower in your lineup and things like that. Like, you do. Teams that go to the Stanley Cup final, they have third lines that can produce and all of that stuff. But it just felt like, again, the Leafs leaned a little bit too much to the side of, toughness and grit. And they lost again, the focus of, like, put skill players down there. Like, again, keep guys like Fraser Minton, Easton Cowan, like a guy like that's having a good year. Like, you should have filled this lineup with more young talent, even on the blue line. Like, I know the OEL signing obviously worked out really well, but like some of those other names, you can go back through other failed, and again, some of this predates Treliving, I know, but other failed acquisitions that they've done, it's like big, old, slow defensemen that can't get the puck to your skilled star forwards, and then your skilled star forwards aren't producing or they start cheating and all of these things. Like, again, they never quite got this full group to mesh. It felt like they never had a plan that was perfectly in line with the core they had.
And I thought last year, early in the year, they were a little bit out of sync as well. Mm-hmm. But that's when I thought Stolars and Woll were so good. And they stole a lot of games from that the Leafs had no business being in. And again, that kind of just puts makeup over the situation, right? I feel like that's a situation where if your goaltending is so good, you can kind of hide a team that isn't defending well or isn't finding their way. And then as the season grows on, you can grow into it. Where this year they didn't get that. And I think it was tough just from front to back for the Toronto Maple Leafs. The pressure, the Mitch Marner talk, and then the lack of that. And then you see what goes on with Craig Berube. It just seems like he kind of lost the room in that motivation, where I think a great example of this was that game the other night in Toronto playing against St. Louis, where they laid an absolute egg. And you're playing Craig Berube's like Stanley Cup team where he was. I know it's a few years removed, but like you'd expect to show up for your head coach in those moments. And it's just been a really, really tough go for this Leafs team. And Treliving is gone. It'll be interesting to see what happens now.
We're going to keep talking about this with our guy Jeff Merrick in a few minutes, so we'll park the Leafs conversation for a moment here. We got a comment earlier in the chat from our friend Mechanicsville. Got to throw Torts' name in the Jack Adams hat, and yes, John Tortorella is 1-0 behind the bench for the Vegas Golden Knights. He even admitted there were a couple of missteps and mistakes. Jesse Granger from The Athletic had the story that he was calling Nick Dowd by the wrong name for the first half of the hockey game. So just goes to show you how quickly he got thrown into the mix here in Vegas. It was a win last night for the Golden Knights. And listen, I watched a good chunk of the game. I went and read our friend Ken's piece out on Sinbin Vegas, and it was a dominant 5-on-5 game for the Golden Knights. It was against a team that they should be dominating in the Vancouver Canucks. It really didn't feel like anything different than what we saw under Bruce Cassidy, which I guess lends to the point of John Tortorella's not coming in here to reinvent the wheel, Huts. He's just coming in here to maybe try spark this team a little bit.
Yeah, and I think it'd be like Rick Bowness. What they're trying to see is like he talks about just little fine details of the defensive zone and little things they need to try to get through. Because at the end of the day, you're not going to reinvent the wheel right now with a hockey team. It's hard enough to really change the way a team plays throughout a hockey season with the lack of practice and the lack of time off because of rest and because the schedule is so heavy. So it is really challenging for coaches without a training camp, without enough time to really work things into the lineup. But I thought last night, he gets a little bit of a taste of it to see what this team can do. And again, it's concerning, right? I think they can generate a lot of chances, but then you do look at the game last night, in my opinion, like Aiden Hill didn't really have a lot of chances on those goals. You look at Evander Kane, who scored last night in his 1,000th game, which is pretty awesome for him. Again, I know he's been an interesting topic throughout his NHL career, but to get to 1,000 games, you're not fooling anybody. So, But those chances, like it's grade A chances, and this is playing against the worst team in the league. So it will be interesting to see how they can carry on with Torts in their ear and the pressure. I thought it was also great last night, Ty. I don't know if you saw that. Torts is walking off and there's the tunnel in Vegas and he gets into the dressing room and he's pointing like right or left, like which way do I go as I come into the room. So that was a great little thing last night.
How about this stat on the Vegas Golden Knights, which again just illustrates how important goaltending is to their success? When they score at least 4 goals in a hockey game this year, they are 24-0-5, which is absolutely insane to think about. Again, a really, really good win for the Golden Knights last night as they start the John Tortorella era on the right foot. Elsewhere in the Western Conference last night, man, Hutz, it's crazy that there are 8-9 games to go for some teams. I know San Jose still has 10 remaining. This playoff race, there's no gaps really forming. And listen, Vegas with a big win last night should have them feeling relatively comfortable, although you look, and if LA were to win the games in hand that they have on Vegas, they're only 2 points back of the Golden Knights. You look at this Western wildcard race, I kind of said it a month ago, and they've lingered around, like all the way down to Winnipeg, Hutz. Winnipeg is not dead in this race at all. If they win that game in hand they have on Nashville, they are 1 point back of the Nashville Predators.
I know it's crazy to think that they are hanging around in this situation, and it's been just a bit of it is a dogfight now because every game is so important, but it's been so lackluster that all these teams are able to hang around. And again, last night was one where it was interesting to find for me that after the post-Olympic break, the St. Louis Blues have the second best record in the NHL. Yeah. Going into last night, and that loss to the San Jose Sharks, like if they win that game, they're sitting at 75 points and the Kraken are still there. It's going to be such an interesting race to get there. And the team for me that I find like hanging around would definitely be the Jets, because I feel like we wrote them off a month or two ago. It's been like, what is going on? It's just right. It's kind of like the Florida situation. It's like, it's an off year. They'll be back next year. They'll find some more pieces, yada, yada, but they find a way. And that would be a team that if you're a high seed and they sneak in like Colorado Avalanche, like again, you don't really want to play them in a 7-game series because they do have Connor Hellebuck who can be that X factor. So it will be an interesting factor for a lot of these teams and the minutes and these younger players getting exposed to it. And a lot of these teams are feeling the pressure, right? When I think about like LA and Seattle, they have a lot more pressure on them, in my opinion, than a San Jose, than a Nashville, because expectations are much higher to get in.
It just feels like every time you write a team off, they find a way to just sort of linger around and win a few games. And then the second you look at a team and go, oh, surely they're safely in a playoff spot. Like you look at Nashville, whatever it was now, a week ago, 8 days ago, they'd won 4 games in a row. And you're like, all right, Nashville's got this sorted. They're in the driver's seat. Then you blink, they've lost 3 in a row. San Jose's won 2 in a row. They're starting to get back into the mix a little bit here. Like if San Jose wins their game in hand, their 2 games in hand, they're going to pass the Nashville Predators. Like it's still so wide open. And people have talked about the playoff format and things like that. People have talked about, do you need to expand the playoff picture and do something like the NBA does with a play-in and all that? There is no need to expand the playoff picture if it's going to keep staying this close right up until the end of the season. Again, San Jose, a team that we'd kind of written off. They've won back-to-back games, and that's a nice tie-in, Hutz, to our fill-in-the-blank segment, because Macklin Celebrini hit the 100-point mark yesterday, a multi-point performance that actually pushed him up to 101 points on the season. The crowd in San Jose was chanting MVP for Macklin. Teenagers in NHL history who have hit 100 points in an NHL season. This list is unbelievable. Wayne Gretzky, Dale Howardchuk, Mario Lemieux, Jimmy Carson, Sidney Crosby, and now Macklin Celebrini. Connor McDavid did it in his 19-year-old season, but he was 20 years old by the time the season ended. So he does kind of count in there as well, but that is quite the list for Macklin Celebrini. And what I wanted to ask you, Hutz, because Celebrini is the first teenager to do it since 97, let's look ahead a little bit here. I'm not sure if Celebrini is going to be able to win the MVP this season, although, again, if San Jose gets in, I guess you never know. But he's the first teenager since McDavid to hit 100 points. By the time McDavid was at the 10-year mark of his career, he had 3 Hart Trophies. Your fill-in-the-blank question. Macklin Celebrini wins blank Hart Trophies by his 10th season.
Oh man, I don't want to jinx the kid, but like, so you start thinking about McDavid having 3, who he dealt with, obviously McKinnon and Kucherov and those, there's so many players. I'm going to say 2. 2 for him for sure. I guess I worry about he's still catching, McKinnon, Kucherov, and McDavid are still producing, and I think that's not really going to stop for the next few years. And then you got to think about Connor Bedard being a guy that is going to be an impact player, right? I think he didn't stay healthy this year. And then some of the other players coming in. So I got him for 2 in his 10 years because I don't know if he gets there this year. I think he is in the race, but I don't know. Give him 2. And I think he's going to have more of a surrounding cast because, again, he's sitting at 101 points right now. And next on that list, I know he missed a little bit of time, Will Smith. Will Smith has 51 points. So he's 50 points better than the next player on his team. Is absolutely outrageous. And I think they're only going to start to add more supporting cast in San Jose to really push him over the top.
Yeah, I think if I had to set a line, it's probably 1.5. It's, again, speaks to how good of a season he's had and how perception around him has changed that, we're sitting here talking about like, how many MVPs is he going to win? Whereas a year ago, it might've been more of a conversation of like, can he win an MVP in his career? But you're right. He'll be competing with the Bedards, and Connor McDavid still has a lot of time left. And so does Nathan McKinnon. He's in his early 30s. Like, I'm sure they're each good for another one at some point over the next 10 years. So there will be obviously a lot of competition for Macklin Celebrini, but I think I'd agree with you. 2 seems to be a bit of a safe number. 3, maybe a little bit of a stretch, but let's circle back and get to our big guest here, Hutz, and talk a little bit more about the big news of the day or of last night. Jeff Merrick's appearance is a presentation of the Ninja Crispy Pro Countertop Glass Air Fryer. Shark Ninja is elevating the air fryer experience. The Ninja Crispy Pro is a family-sized cooking system that comes with a 6-quart and 2 half-quart glassware containers, storage lids, crisper plates, and a modular base for any occasion. The clean, crisp glassware is designed for non-toxic cooking and storing and allows you to go from frozen to crispy in just minutes. The Ninja Crispy Pro is powerful. Its 1,800-watt air fryer can cook a 7.5-pound chicken, feeding up to 10 people. That is a very big chicken. It's customizable with 6-in-1 functions like max crisp, air fry, bake, roast, re-crisp, and dehydrate. For more information on the Ninja Crispy Pro, visit the link in our description or go to sharkninja.ca. Jeff Merrick from The Sheet joins us as he always does. And listen, there are playoff races going on, and usually this time of year, that is what dominates the headlines. But it's a couple of firings late in the season that have obviously grabbed our attention here, Jeff. Were you at all surprised to see Treliving get let go at this point in the season?
Yes, as I kind of was with Kevin Adams with the Buffalo Sabres. Normally, general manager transitions, firings, whatever you want to call them, happen in the off season. So maybe, considering what the last couple of years have been like around the NHL, and specifically the last couple of days, maybe I should just stop being surprised. Just stop being surprised at anything that Vegas does and any team that chooses to dismiss managers or coaches, regardless of whatever the schedule says. But yeah, this one did surprise me. Like the whisper circle, the barking chain, describe it however you want. I mean, this had been out there for a while. It was about a month and a half ago, I think we started to hear the name Doug Armstrong as well. Well, if the Maple Leafs make a move on their general manager, don't be surprised, et cetera. So that's been out there in the whisper circles for a while. But I think anytime you see a manager fired during the season, I think it's a surprise. So long answer, short answer, yes, surprised.
I kind of had a bit of a tough time earlier on in the show, like looking back through Treliving's tenure and being like, okay, like what was good, what was bad, like. The Carlo deal aged very, very poorly. Outside of that, I don't know if there was like a truly terrible trade in there. Was there a great trade? I don't think so. But when you look back at Treliving's tenure, what was maybe the fatal flaw or move, maybe in philosophy, maybe an actual trade? Is there something that stands out?
The fatal flaw, I think, and this is a sort of cautionary tale, I think, for all managers, and this is really easy for me to say, considering in my profession, I talk a lot back seat, no hands on the wheel here. In a salary cap universe, creativity gets rewarded. Being safe doesn't, right? You need creative managers with creative thinking. And one of the things, as everybody sort of has tried to look for reasons why the Toronto Maple Leafs, and not just like recent history, but like capital H history, going back to when the league doubled in 1967. Like, you're trying to find reasons why the Toronto Maple Leafs have been an exercise in frustration and futility. And the thing that I keep coming back to with the Toronto Maple Leafs, and this is certainly true in the salary cap era, there were some mitigating issues around John Ferguson that I can share with you if you want. But generally, it's been an organization, and to frame this specifically, that looks for tactical solutions to strategic problems. It's kind of like, oh, we need to do something about all this crime. I know, we'll make more jails. Well, yeah, that provides criminals a play, but you're not addressing the issue, right? So that's what I'm saying, like tactical solutions to strategic problems. And what you find, and there's a lot of complicating factors that go into the Toronto Maple Leafs or managing the Toronto Maple Leafs, which make it difficult. But there hasn't really been a group that has said, here are strategic issues, or these are our strategic problems, and we need to address them as such, and not just come up with tactical solutions for them. I hope I'm explaining myself well. In my mind, that makes sense. I hope that it does in your minds as well. But it's kind of like, if I can sort of simple it down a little bit, just have sort of gone around plugging holes. And when you look at teams that have success with elite players, it's teams that find creative ways to win, ways around the rules, whether it's salary cap, circumvention, LTIR, all these different types of, whether you're Vegas or whether you're Tampa or whether you're Florida, etc. Chicago before that with Patrick Kane. These are the managers that get rewarded. These are the teams that get rewarded. The ones that, look for inefficiencies elsewhere and address them and bring them on board. Those are the teams that are successful. The teams that aren't successful in a salary cap universe where everything's a level playing field and you can't spend yourselves out of mistakes, the ones that aren't successful are the ones that just do the obvious. Again, those are the teams with the tactical solutions that never, ever look at the strategic problems. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's always the factor too, right? Like how many times do we see a Stanley Cup champion or someone goes on? It's like those little pieces that they added around the area that helped, right? You have your core, your stars, and then it's like those strategic moves, right, Jeff? Like I totally get that. And when I look at this team now, it's like, so Toronto's average age is 29 years old, right? Like they're headed in the wrong direction. Montreal's 25. And Montreal, you could say, is a much better hockey team. I think they probably got better quicker than we expected. But where does the next guy go from here? Like, who is the next piece? Is it like a builder? Is it like a Lamorello? Like, where do they go now, the next guy coming in?
And again, complicating factors, the nature of MLSE, the relationship with the NHL broadcast deal, like all of this is all part of this sort of Gordian knot that the Maple Leafs get themselves tied up into. But I think it's a really good question, and we'll find out more when Keith Pelly talks a little bit later on this afternoon. But I think, and I've thought about this a lot since last night, like what's the nature of the kind of person they need? And they need a planner. This is a team right now that needs a planner. They don't need someone that, I've got all these relationships, I can get these players, I can sign these I have these great relationships with this agency. No. This is a team that needs a creative planner. Someone with a vision that is longer than one season. With this team right now, you can't go season to season. And you know what? I know there's been a lot of names out there, and Doug Armstrong is the big one. And again, like the barking chain had Armstrong's name, and it's a while ago. Here's one that I really wonder about. Mike Gillis. When you look at someone, considering like if there's not going to be a sort of president's layer to this, because they've gotten rid of those, MLS has gotten rid of those, you need to have someone that I think that can act presidentially and sort of fulfill that mandate, almost like a Mark Shapiro in a sense, but one that also has a very, two hands on the wheel and manages the team. And when you look at someone like Mike Gillis, who's worked, management for a number of years, was an agent, is still considered a mentor for a lot of agents around the NHL, they still come to him for advice. He was a finalist for the executive director of the NHL Players Association, and has, a huge respect amongst NHL teams, and has the ability to think creatively. Like, remember how everyone laughed at Mike Gillis for the sleep stuff that he did with the Vancouver Canucks? Remember that, about like planning naps and planning when they sleep and all these types of things? Remember how he's like, what is this? Like, but Mike saw that as an advantage. You need some, and now, by the way, everybody does it. Now every team does it, right? But back then, this would have been like what 2009, guys. Everyone's like laughing. I'm like, what's Mike Gillis on? Like, what is that? And everyone like, around the NHL too, and he was onto that years and years before anybody else. That's the kind of person, whether it's Mike or whether it's someone like him. I think that's the kind of manager the Maple Leafs need. Someone that is creative and doesn't just fulfill the obligations of the general manager based on, well, he's been a general manager before and everybody knows his name. That's the kind of guy there. And mainly a planner. A planner's a big one.
So I want to unpack that a little bit more, because if you're going to hire a planner,
Okay.
I think you have to give them term and security and, a multi-year deal, because if you just give them even a 3-year deal, I think it could force them to make some panic moves. I also think, like, when a new GM takes over a fan base, especially a major market one like Toronto, will sit there and say, all right, is this GM going to put his stamp on the team immediately? If they go the route of hiring a planner, someone who's, going to take maybe a long-winded approach to this thing, is it fair to assume maybe this roster might look pretty similar next year?
Could be. It all depends on, I think, the first order of business, and that is what happens with Austin Matthews, right? And the other thing, too, is, and this always happens, an organization will have one idea of how they want this team to behave, and generally they will hire the person that best reflects that vision. Whether that vision is right or wrong, that's the vision that gets rewarded. That's why I think until this organization has a clear indication of what is happening with Austin, and make no mistake about it, like, this is the summer where, like, there will be conversations between the Maple Leaf and Austin Matthews / Judd Moldaver, his representation rather, from the team, formerly Wasserman. And I think what Austin Matthews will want to hear, or the discussion will revolve around, like, how quickly can this team be competitive again? Is it going to be another season like the Maple Leafs just saw, or with a couple of adjustments and health being the ultimate wild card, can they spin this thing back with a couple of additions and be right back in the playoff hunt, going deep into the playoffs? Or if not, and this goes right to Matthews, is it worth it for Matthews to stay in Toronto? I think that informs everything about the future of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Because if the idea for Matthews is, yeah, you know what, I don't think this thing is getting turned around anytime quick, what's the point of Austin Matthews in his prime right now, being with a team that's a couple years away from being a couple of years away? So I think that's got to be front and center. And until you see that, it's going to be tough to chart what this next version of the Maple Leafs is going to look like. Because either going to have Matthews with it or not.
100%, right? And I think that matters so much. It's been such a unique year too, right? Because you look at what Buffalo did early in the year. Kevin Adams leaves, and next thing you know, Buffalo Sabres are a powerhouse. And then you look at the Rick Bowness effect, the coach being fired. Obviously, Berube's a question mark. Where's his fate hanging in the balance as well? Like, now, is it the writing on the wall that after the season over, is Berube is gone, or is another GM come in? I feel like there's so many question marks toward next season as well.
Yeah, it's a great point. Listen, I'll just go back to Saturday. Craig Berube and the Toronto Maple Leafs go back to St. Louis, where their coach enjoyed the highest of highs, lifting the Stanley Cup, first Stanley Cup in the history of the St. Louis Blues. He's still very much valued and respected and loved in St. Louis, and they muster up 13 shots. Like, there have been so many stops along the way here for the Maple Leafs where you've looked at it and you've said, these guys are a quick guy, right? And Hut's like, you've been on teams where teams have quit on the coach. Like, it just runs out. And that's where I think you need to have someone in there. And I don't know what the fate of Craig Berube is going to be here. I know it's very much a question that's out there. I think a lot of it will depend on what the vision for this team is going to be. And here's the thing that I always like to remind people about, and that is, just because one person has won a Stanley Cup doesn't mean they can do it again as a head coach. As a matter of fact, you have history against you. You have Tommy Gorman, Dick Irvin, and Scotty Bowman. Those are the only three coaches to ever win Stanley Cups with two different teams. Scotty did it with three. This league has been in existence since 1917. So the idea that, this coach has won a Stanley Cup before, he knows how to do it and he can do it here, you might be right eventually, but you have the entire weight of history saying that's not true, because there's only been three. Only been three.
Yeah, I agree. I also think too that like there's like this sex appeal that everyone thinks that people want to come to Toronto. And I knew right away yesterday, you hear about Doug Armstrong's name, Jim Nill. Like not everybody wants to come there and be in the spotlight and have this pressure where like you can hide somewhere else and it's a different way of life. And the last one I just wanted to pick your brain on quickly was the Tortorella fight. Like, is it too little too late for the Vegas Golden Knights? Or is this one where it's like, hey, let's just, the way things are going, what the hell? Let's throw it out there and see if we can have a little bit of catch lightning in the bottle with the coach bump.
Yeah, I don't think that Tortorella is going to do much to this team other than just give them the jolt that I think they're looking for. Like, look, just like we talked about with Craig Berube and the Maple Leafs, like just so flat for this coach, punctuated by Saturday's loss against the Blues. The same thing we saw in Boston, we started to see in Vegas, and there was all kinds of conversation about, last year after Vegas bowed out, is Cassidy going to survive? Is he going to come back? We know that the relationship with him and a lot of the key players has been prickly, to give the relationship a soft landing, as we describe it. Like it happens, right? Like, but at the same time, Bruce Cassidy took the Boston Bruins to the Stanley Cup final. Bruce Cassidy got the Vegas Golden Knights a Stanley Cup. Like his last two at bats, like he's hit this thing out of the park. I don't think he's a bad coach. I just think that he's a coach that has a shelf life with players after he gets the most out of them. I don't think Tortorella is going to come in here and change anything. Now, the timing of it is interesting. One, because of how few games are left. But two, if you have a look at the schedule, and coaches always do this. Oh, yeah, I lost my job before the easy part of the schedule. There's 2 against Vancouver and 1 against the Calgary Flames. If you want to set your new coach up for success, to make yourself look like a genius, Kelly McCrimmon just did it with the Vegas Golden Knights. And John Tortorella checked the first box last night, beating Vancouver 4-2.
I honestly, it could give that team though, like even
if
it's a false sense of confidence, it probably will give them a boost if they.
Tyler, here's my question though. Can John Tortorella stop a puck? Because that's been the biggest issue. I have never seen him play net. Carter, like you know goaltenders. Have I missed something here? Did John have like a goaltending career I wasn't aware of? But at the end of the day, like, has that not been Exhibit A for the Vegas Knights? Like the goalies are hard to hit.
100% right. And again, like what you said about being a Stanley Cup champion, and then you go to like Aiden Hill, I feel like everyone's like, well, he's a Stanley Cup champion win goalie. But like when you're playing like crap, it doesn't mean that you're the same goalie. Like things change. You're a product of your surroundings. Like it's great to hang your hat on that, but it doesn't mean you're still good. You were good at one point, but right now you aren't.
Yeah, things worked out for you perfectly for once in your life, and we all hope that happens to us, where everything lines up perfectly. Because listen, winning Stanley Cups, of course, a lot of it is talent and effort. And there's that L word we all don't like to use because we want to pretend that we can measure everything and understand everything, and we can't. And that L word is luck. And it's a reality.
Ding, ding, ding. I love when people bring that up too, because it's something everyone just glosses over. It's kind of why I say like there's one Stanley Cup champion every year, but there's a boatload of teams that should be like happy with their seasons, because so many times you're a bounce away from things going just so entirely differently. But again, that's sort of the name of the game here. Jeff, appreciate your time. What's coming up on the sheet today?
Thanks, boys. Me and Pierre McGuire talking about the situation in Toronto with Brad Treliving, speculation on who might be next. Further to the conversation that we had, like what type of personality or what type of person does this Toronto Maple Leafs team need? And we'll have a whack at the Tortorella Pinata. We got to do that as well. So a lot of fun with Pierre coming up top of the hour.
All right, top of the hour, like you said. Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, man.
Moving on to our daily Faceoff inbox question, hashtag AskDFO. A couple of polls in the YouTube chat. 87% of you think Craig Berube is out by next season. I think I agree. 68% of you said no, John Tortorella will not fix the Golden Knights season. I also think I agree with you on that. There is something in here that I found a little odd. J-Rock said we can ask anything, so he asked for our go-to pizza order on the heels of my Boston pizza comment. And you went pineapple and jalapenos, Huts?
Yeah, but like with meat too. Like I like that with like ham or sausage, and then I like pineapple and I like jalapeno. You know, pineapple takes a beating in the pizza world. It's either like a love or hate, but with jalapeno, the sweet and spicy, I'm all in, brother.
I am with you on pineapple. I think it is like S tier, top of the chart pizza topping. It is so good. Man. I like doing like a chicken and pineapple and then like a teriyaki drizzle on top. Oh my God. Unreal.
That sounds like a lunatic move, but I'm in, buddy. I'd ride with you all day there.
Jalapenos isn't all right. J-Rock wants to know, will our Bet365 records next year get better if you bet on sports you know nothing about, like cricket or rugby? Maybe, because it probably can't get worse. I see a lot of X's there. I needed the Anaheim Ducks to cover the puck line for me yesterday. They did not cover the puck line for me yesterday, and I see a couple more X's. Pat, those goddamn Ducks got us.
I know. The puck line was the one. Carlson and Gauthier both scored. I should have done anytime goal scorers and just skipped the puck line. But, Toronto played a good game. They were kind of fighting back against the Matthews thing, so we probably should have seen that coming.
Yeah, well, I hit the 2 puck lines. Vegas, I read Colorado just absolutely waxed them. And then the New York Islanders were looking good, right? I'm up 3-1 second period. This is a playoff team. They're going to lock it down. And then they gave up 7 straight. So that was great to just crush my heart.
All right, picks for tonight for Bet365. Tired of waiting for the game to end to get paid, ready to move on to the next puck drop? That's why Bet365, an official partner of the NHL, they have the 3-goal early payout. If the team you're riding with goes up 3 goals at any point in the game, they'll pay your bet out early. Hockey moves fast, and now with the 3-goal early payout, there's one less thing you have to wait around for. Bet365, download the app, see what early payout's all about. Must be 19 or older. Please play responsibly. A 3-leg parlay that I have deemed is the bet that will get me back in this challenge. It's just over 25-1. It is 3 shot props for tonight's hockey games. Elias Lindholm has hit this mark of 3+ shots in 4 of his last 5 games. Noah Cates from the Philadelphia Flyers has hit this bet in 3 of his last 5 games and 2 of his last 3 games. And Matt Savoy has hit this bet in 3 of his last 5 games. They've all hit this in 3 or 4 of their last 5 games. Play them together, plus 2,500, and I'm right back in this thing. Pat?
I'm definitely going to squad ride with you on that one. That's a fun one. I like it. The only one I was worried about is Lindholm, but with those stats, I'm with you. I've got the Dallas money line versus Boston and Philadelphia money line versus Washington. I feel like the odds are a little tilted towards Boston more than they should. I like Dallas in that one. Philadelphia has been hot lately, and Washington seems to be kind of out of it. So plus 271 for just 2 money lines. I'll take that all day long. Huts?
I'm with you with the Philadelphia money line. I just think they're rolling in the right direction. They got to find a way to win. I think you'll see Dan Vladar today because they were back-to-back. It was Vladar, then Ersson. I think Vladar plays well tonight. And then I got the Sens money line. This is an interesting one for me, because Linus Ullmark took the option in the game. I heard Travis Green comments. He needed rest. He's going to be rested. He's got to be good tonight, or I feel like he's going to lose the room completely. So I think this is a huge game for the Sens in the standings, in the battle. So the 2 teams on the outside looking in parlayed 223, and then hopefully Ty hits and get some legs back in this game.
All right, wrapping up the show with a little bit of garbage time because I love moving on from that segment. But last night, the tilt we were all waiting for here, Huts, Radko Gudas, he said he was going to answer the bell. He took off the walking boot. He played injured because he didn't want any of his teammates to have to, be the one to own up or answer for his mistake of kneeing Austin Matthews. And we got the tilt. It was Max Domi and Gudas right at center ice, right off the opening faceoff. What'd you make of this?
I think it's one of those scenarios where he answered the bell, and I respect that a lot. I think there's a lot of integrity in the game. I just don't even know if he went into this fight trying to even throw a punch. Radko Gudas is a tough customer, and he's been in a lot of situations. It felt like he was just going to take his penance and move on from it. So I respect him for the way it was handled. And obviously, I think this is just a little bit too late for me for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think you look at everything that's gone on. It's great. It's a bit of a circus act now. This should have been dealt with the second Austin Matthews was kneed, in my personal opinion. And I know Pat's got it queued up here. I kind of grabbed this clip today. Again, Anthony Stolarz, they're skating by, and he takes a little shot at Ville Husso. Again, Anthony Stolarz, it's a little too late. You should have been good when you called your teammates out earlier in the year. Now you're in a situation where it doesn't even matter. So again, a big win last night, I think, was the John Tavares show, who continually still produces. But again, credit to Radko Gudas in doing that. I think that just sends a message to the younger players on his team about his demeanor and who he is.
There's a quality that I can't stand in sports. I can't stand it in my day-to-day life. It's performative, right? Like when you can tell someone's doing something just because they want the attention or because they feel bad or they're trying to patch their ego up or whatever. And that's all yesterday was. You had Pizzetta and all these guys and Stolarz. They're going because they knew everyone was watching the game, right? They knew the hockey world was focused on them because of Radko Gudas, and they thought, all these clips of us fighting, people are going to think we're a team. It was just so performative performative. You're right. If it was genuine, if they were actually a team that had each other's backs, who actually wanted to be in the fight together, this shit would not be happening in that game. The Leafs have not shown a single flash of being this kind of a team. I will say once this season. They've rarely shown it over the last couple of years under Craig Berube. So to just go do it now, I mean, Carousel Vertigo in the chat says it was embarrassing. Yeah. Justin, maybe a counterpoint. He says 1,000% this game was performative. However, sometimes you got to fake it until you make it. I hope this helps fix the DNA. But I'm telling you, it's just not in their DNA. They can be performative when there's pressure on them, but I'm not there. And with Gudas, I think Gudas, it's the opposite of performative. It's genuine. Like you said, Huts, he didn't go into that fight wanting or having any interest in throwing a punch. He went in there and said, I'm going to take my lumps so that none of my teammates have to take any of the shit for what I did.
And I think what General Sornas said makes sense too. Like, it was kind of over when they kept going at him. It's like, it's kind of done. He did it. It is what it is. And this is a guy that can defend himself, boys. Like, trust me, he could take liberties on guys. And to the performative factor, reminds me of like players with social media and things that would do stuff to the light. I always remember Alex Steen, who used to do so much stuff in the St. Louis Blues community, whether it was hospital visits or donating. And there would never be a camera around. It was never for his purpose. And I always think like those are the true leaders within a group that like you understand what it is to be an NHL or to be in that spotlight, to be a mentor, to be someone that they look up to. So when it's just for cameras and show, it gets a little old with me as well.
Yep, I'm with you on that front. Quick reminder, giving a little love to another show in our network. Coming in hot, had Pete DeBoer on earlier today. You can watch it. It was a live interview. I think it went live at 9 a.m. Eastern this morning. That is a pretty timely guest to have, considering the news that's been made over the last 48 to 72 hours in the hockey world. So go find that on the Coming In Hot YouTube. But that is a wrap for us here on Daily Faceoff Live. Bit of a long one today, but there was a lot to roll through. We'll be back tomorrow with a Wednesday edition of the show. Maybe we'll be joined by our friend Steve Peters. Maybe we'll talk a little bit more about the situation in Vegas with him as well. But enjoy the hockey tonight on a Tuesday. Plenty of big ones on tap, and we'll see you all right back here tomorrow at noon Eastern.
Hey, hockey fans, if you enjoyed that video, then make sure you hit the subscribe button right here on the Daily Faceoff YouTube. We have you covered for everything you need. Exclusive interviews on The Sheet with Jeff Merrick, all the latest hockey news on Daily Faceoff Live, and you can always get your morning started with Johnny Lazarus and Colby Cohn on Morning Cup of Hockey. Don't miss a minute. Hit that subscribe button.